Hello, this is ThePremLife. I'm Josh Court and this is Matthew Coulson. So starting off with results, I think we should just go for some...
Jump straight in, yeah.
So I was thinking just to start us off with a big result of the weekend, Liverpool United.
Yeah, so a big game on the weekend. United were a little bit poor in my opinion there.
I'm glad you said so because I was going to tell you all about it.
Yeah, Liverpool weren't exactly impressive either. They sort of sat deep for most of the match, but they played to a plan, and Rodgers seems to have learnt his lesson from last year where they went out and attacked the big teams and didn't get the results. So,
and on the goal, I'd like to hear your comments before I make mine on the goal. Not that Liverpool did anything wrong, but
it was a bit slack. I think it was Ferdinand marking Agger.
Yeah.
Got away from him very, very early on in the corner and then never really recovered. And so Agger really got a good jump on him. Sturridge,
stole the goal.
He just stole it, yeah, for sure.
Okay, I'm glad you agree. That's what I was going to say.
It probably would have gone in anyway, but there's no reason not to get the touch. And he did well because he could have easily stayed up and blocked it or something.
Yeah.
So,
and also, his header actually, considering that he was attempting to steal the goal, he actually did well to not then hit it out of the goal. Because, if you think about the header, he barely got anything on it, and he got a decent connection.
Look, when a player's in form, you're always going to put those in the back of the net. Much like how Giroud put his goal away on the weekend. Good touch, but when a player's in form like that,
very pleasing.
I thought that the Tottenham and Arsenal and Man United Liverpool games were very similar in the first 70 minutes, to be honest. But I thought the big difference between the games was that in the last few minutes, Tottenham really pushed on and Arsenal were under quite a lot of pressure, although they countered well. The Liverpool-Man United game just seemed to fizzle out. Nothing happened the last 20 minutes. And I think that's the biggest worry for Moyes at the moment, is that his team's showing no Fergie-like fight or spirit.
Yeah, at the end of the game, sure. The other thing that I was going to say is, I don't want to say from the start of the game, because I think that takes credit away from Liverpool. Actually did play well, and I think part of the game fizzling out was actually maybe credit to Liverpool, because if you think about the high intensity they started the game with, it made everyone tired by the end of the game.
Yeah,
because the United guys had to work very hard. If Liverpool were doing hard work and high intensity at the start, United couldn't go low intensity. You know what I mean? They were going to get thumped 3 goals down half time if they did that.
The Liverpool midfield was definitely a midfield 3 instead of United, who sort of had Welbeck at the tip almost. And Welbeck's not a midfielder; he's not natural there. So they dominated that area. Lucas was very, very good, as was Gerrard in defensive right, and they sort of ran through Carrick, and particularly cleverly he looked.
What I was going to say is
not quite up to the standard of that sort of game, to be honest.
Did not take credit away from Liverpool. Between the 5th and the 25th minute, I thought United were the worst I've ever seen United in the last 8 seasons.
It looked like a nervous Everton team coming to Liverpool, going to Anfield, not the United brass, confident. So it's a big problem for Moyes, and he has to sort it very, very quickly otherwise.
And the big difference probably between the Spurs game and the United game was that at the Spurs game it just got more and more intense as the game got towards the ending, probably because Arsene Wenger decided to put besides putting on the 6 defenders, he decided to play with 6 at the back, which was ridiculous because you're just asking for trouble when you go and play 6 at the back.
I think Arsenal knew that Tottenham didn't really have the big strong striker who can win the ball in the air, so going deep wasn't too much of a risk. But at the same time, Liverpool instead went to a very flat back 4, very flat midfield 4-2, and it was just very difficult to break down for United. So
what I was going to say, the problem with the 6 at the back is that Sanya and Monreal, he came on as an extra left and right back. They should have been a little bit, not much higher. It's fine for them to come back and help defend, but they should have been a little bit higher because anytime Arsenal did try and clear the ball, there was 0% chance of anyone actually picking it up and relieving some pressure.
That's the point that I was trying to make, is it's better to have the left and right winger, even if they are defensive wide players, rather than just going to everyone at the back, because otherwise the ball's just coming back at you all the time. But saying that, Arsenal got the result, so can't be too critical.
I'd like to say though, because not many people made comments about it, I actually thought out of the Arsenal players, a player who played particularly well in the game was Mertesacker. Because he actually, I can't remember him getting a yellow, and he just got lots of good tackles. I'm not saying he was fantastic with man of the match, just he got lots of very good tackles, and he won his headers, and he did his usual commanding of the defence.
I think the problem for Spurs, and you could see in the last few minutes when Lamela came on, was that they just lack creativity. And everyone's been banging on about it, but it's the obvious point. And clearly Villas-Boas has seen that too, and he's brought in Eriksen and Lamela. And I think he'll make a big difference to Spurs.
But don't you think then, I mean, Eriksen does play centrally, but don't you think then Lamela, he'd be expecting Lamela to play more centrally then?
No, I think he'll play as a wide player, sort of an inverted winger.
Okay.
Yeah, sort of how Coutinho plays on the left for Liverpool, and then free roll to drift in.
Sure.
Try and make an impact like that. But he looks like a big, strong athlete, almost a direct replacement for Bale to me. So.
And to touch on a result that's not so much of a big six clash, we watched Newcastle beat
Fulham.
That's it. Fulham won with a hat and Ben Arthur goal. So tell me about Fulham's chances position-wise in the league coming season after watching.
Well, Fulham struggled, and you watch Fulham and you see them struggle so often, and it's just they get say 10 game weeks where they play out of their skins and go and thump anyone who's in their way, and that's what kept them up this year. And I'll back them to do it again this season. But you can't rely on things like that. They got to put better performances in, and they need better performances from some of their big players who just become a bit anonymous at times and only score when they're winning by a big margin. But I think that they should survive fairly comfortably, sort of 14th, 15th, but we really have to see some of those performances where they play out their skin and everyone pitches in, because otherwise they look like a relegation candidate against Newcastle, who didn't look particularly impressive themselves.
It was a scrappy game, a very scrappy game. No, it's quite a, not to be harsh to Newcastle or Fulham, but a bit of a, you watch that kind of game and you would say normally these are two relegation candidates.
Desperate. Both of them look very desperate. So.
And none of them actually wanted to go for the... I mean, Newcastle more being the home team wanted
Newcastle
to go for...
were forced into it by Fulham going so deep that they just didn't have a choice but to pile onto them. So.
But at the start of the game, neither team wanted to go for it. Both were not were happy with the draw, but they just couldn't afford to lose. They'd rather not lose than win sort of situations.
Course, no. Both fans were on their back and they couldn't afford to, particularly for the Newcastle fans.
Yeah.
So what do you think of Ben Arthur's goal? Because it was a fantastic strike. I mean,
when you defend as deep as Fulham, things like that happen. Not necessarily a long-range strike, because obviously the quality of the strike was fantastic, but something can happen. Even a pretty terrible shot could deflect off a defender, and then you get things like Martin Skirtle and those sort of players score. That's when you get those sort of players scoring goals. Nothing in Skirtle being a bad player, but that's when you get centre-backs, Hangelas, those sort of players, Colacinis, all those sort of players getting in there amongst the goals, because deflections happen, own goals happen when you get so close to your goal. The keeper can't see the ball. Also you're asking for that kind of...
But you put in a big game a sort of player who really is prone to doing something magical, and you give him that sort of opportunity.
Sure. You're
paying for the price, and you really are.
And also with Cisse obviously doesn't produce enough for Newcastle. It's either a monster goal or no goal kind of thing.
Nowhere in between, but
you have to say at some point that he's a goal scorer of some kind. To say that he can't score goals is.
He looks like a form player when he's in form. He bangs him in from anywhere. I mean, Papi Cisse, the monster we saw in the first, everyone was after him. That's the thing, But for me, the massive difference for Newcastle has been since they've dropped Tiarte and put Anita in. It's given them, instead of this disorganised midfield, diving in all over the place, positionally a bit poor to be honest, and people just running straight through the middle, you put maybe a lesser player than Anita, to be honest. I mean, he's nothing special in there, but he just does his job and sits tight.
Kind of like Perch did, actually, when Perch was playing for Newcastle.
So Tiarte, I mean, it's the same story for me with Parker. He was 2 seasons ago Player of the Year, but I mean, you got to have someone who first and foremost is going to hold their position in the midfield and keep it tight, rather than someone who's flying all over the place, making these glorious tackles or whatever. That's not really the job. The job is to keep it tight in the midfield, hold it together. And so Tiate needs to remember first and foremost what his job is before he comes back into the team.
Sure. Anyway, that's all we got time for. If you want to ask us more questions, such as for player reviews or for comparisons between players, use the hashtag ThePremLife on Twitter or send us an email on Gmail. You can also leave a comment on the YouTube page, and we'll try our best to get to it in the next video. Anyway, goodbye.